Lainey's funny. She texted me the other day and said she forgot it was Wednesday last week, which I completely can like relate to fully. Fully relate to that.
Nearly forgot it was Wednesday today.
I know. Well, this is the thing about being a writer. Thank goodness that Mike's live stream, like he doesn't have a live stream, but he has um his premiere is every week and like an hour before mine. And so and so at least I have him to kind of remind me every week that it's Wednesday. Otherwise, I would be in big trouble and I would not remember at all. So, cool gamer, we are super super glad you are here today. Mary Putnam is here. Hello, Mary. Glad to see you today. Off to a slow start. I feel that.
Yeah.
I will say the horror geek and I have been walking every day, and I really enjoy, like, we walk every morning before we get started, which is actually supposed to be really good for creativity. And I used to walk a lot more, and I've sort of gotten out of the habit of it, but I really am enjoying that. And at least I feel like, even though I feel like I'm having a slow start when I get out of bed, like I'm like, "Oh god, I don't wanna do it." But I know, like, if I can just get my shoes on and get outside, that it'll be fine after that. So,
Yeah,
anyway.
I've been doing the same. And with the dog, it's been more like morning, midday, and evening. So I've been breaking
Yeah.
the walks up and trying to get a little more out of them and get some exercise and fresh air.
That's good. Our dog is old. Well, you guys know. Oh, is he not? Oh, he left. No, he's right here in the doorway. So Odin is old. He's to the point now, like, where it's kind of a struggle to make it like all the way across the house, let alone, you know, power walking. So we don't do that. We could, but we don't. Anyway, so Amy's here. Hello. Super, super glad to see you today. Lainey's like, glad it's not just me. I totally get it. Yes,
I think it's
exactly.
one of those weeks. As you can
Yeah.
see outside, everything looks kind of greenish, and that's because
Mhm.
it is. There's fires from somewhere, and I can't even think where the fires are at the moment, but we're having a lot of smoke. The world looks a little foggy, and everything has looked green. When I got up in the morning yesterday, the sun was out, and the sun had a pinkish hue, and then as the day went on, it just turned green and stayed that way.
Isn't that
The
interesting?
moon last night was bright red.
Really? Oh my gosh, that it's so fascinating. What I was gonna ask you, like, what was the sunset like? I know here in Florida, sometimes if there's smoke in the air, that sometimes you get a more dramatic sunset. This could just be
It was
like
overcast. I
unrelated.
didn't even see like a technical sunset. The sun lasted a matter of hours, but that moon popped out and it was like red, like it was on fire. So that was kind of interesting. I got some pictures. I'm not sure exactly how they turned out, but
That's super cool, actually. Although, like, be careful if you have any sort of asthma, breathing
yeah.
issues, anything like that. Hi. We are super, super glad to see you here. Very nice. Nova Scotia. I have no idea what that was about, but I love it. All
Maybe
right.
that's where the fires are.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, could be, could be. Mama Ward is here. Hello. We are super glad to see you today. Lainey says we are getting Catherine Fox's fire smoke. Oh, okay. There we go. And Mama Word also says the moon was very rusty last night. Well, that's
Yeah.
kind of funny. I actually like, we always like to sort of check out what's ever, if there's a meteor shower or anything like that. Like, we are on the driveway, looking up at the stars. But and we're really fortunate because we don't have a lot of light pollution where we live. But I totally missed the show last night. I feel kind of bad about that. All right. Mama War says hello to you, Robert.
Hi.
What am I, chocolate? No, I'm kidding. So, all right, you guys, let's go ahead and get started today with a 5-minute warm up sprint. When we
I'm
come
ready.
back, yeah, when we come back, we are going to talk about a little fan fiction brouhaha that was making its rounds all over the internet last week. So, let's go ahead and do our 5-minute warm up. What are you going to be working on today, Robert?
I am back to editing my manuscript and working on some new material for that.
Cool.
Picking up where I left off a couple of days ago. I was actually on a bit of a roll and then I sort of plateaued for the last 2 days. So hitting back up.
Okay, that's good. I have I'm on deadline. I have to finish my book by Sunday at the latest, and I'm going on vacation on Monday, so I like really have to get this done. And yeah, so I'm really close. I was thinking at one point like Sunday that I might actually finish in the stream, but I'm not. I'm not that close. So, but I'm getting pretty close, so I'm excited about that. All right, let's go ahead and do our first 5-minute warm up sprint. Let me just get the
I want to
camera.
see that TED Talk that Mary's got there.
Right? Yes.
We need a
Yes.
link.
Yes to that. Oh my gosh. All right, you guys. So let's go ahead and get 5 minutes up on the screen, and let us know in the chat what you're planning on working on today. I don't know if you noticed. I'm sure Michelle is out of town this week, so she is not going to be with us. And just as a reminder, we will not be doing a live stream next week because I will be on vacation, but we'll be back the week after that. I think summer is always more challenging because people travel and there's all that other stuff. So,
Mhm.
ooh, all right. I just 3, 2, 1. I was like so into it. I just didn't even. Woo. All right. So, how'd you do on the 5 minutes warm up sprint?
I made a start, but that's about it.
That's okay. It's only 5 minutes. That's all it's
Yeah.
for, right? Get your little drink out and your document opened and all that good stuff. And yeah, we're okay. You started, so I feel like that's a win, right?
Yes.
Yes, definitely, definitely. All right, you guys in the chat. Hey, oh, hey, RC. It's so nice to see you. Very nice. Mama Ward says, I am looking forward to it. All right, here we go. Let's see what everybody's doing today. Dun, dun, dun. All right, Daisy, morning. We are super, super glad to see you here today. Mama was going to take off June, but the things and the things plus the things. Yes. Yes, exactly. Lainey is plotting a holiday novella. Ooh, I love that. Moss working on a script as well. Very, very nice. Mama Word editing the last Ancient Ice Apocalypse and getting ready to record a segment for the AWC 2023, creating believable neurodivergent characters. Very nice. Oh, with our very own Heather. Glad to see it. Nice. Love it. All right, that is absolutely fantastic. RC is here. We're super glad you're here. So, how did you guys all do in that 5 minute sprint? Let us know in the chat. So, today we're going to talk about a topic that is, it got a lot of play on the internet over the last week. And that is, there was, and I'm not going to use names because there was like a lot of kind of pile on in two different directions. And we don't want to add to that. But I also thought it was sort of a good learning opportunity that we should talk about. And that is, there was an author who was a big horror fan, and he decided that he wanted to write a novelization of Halloween 5, which is widely regarded as a terrible Halloween movie. And there are lots of fans that wish it had gone differently. So this is probably a project that a lot of fans would appreciate. He reached out to a publisher that does a lot of movie novelizations, and they reached out to the folks who own the production company that owns Halloween 5, and they said, no, thank you. We're not interested in a novelization of Halloween 5. And they'd already, from your client or from this author, and we've already got somebody else working on one that's like tied up. So the publisher comes back to the author and says, hey, sorry, dude, but the Halloween 5 production company, the rights holders are not interested in the novelization. And he had, the writer was crushed. He had spent a long time, like a year, I think he'd said, working on this, and decided that he was going to go ahead and put it up on Amazon for sale. And he did. And the publisher, Robert, tell everyone while you're laughing at that particular statement.
Well, yes, a year's work is a long time to put into a project.
It is.
But it's not your characters or your property to run with.
Right.
You made a choice to do that. You should have got permission to begin with.
Right, if you were intending to monetize it in that particular way. And clearly the folks at Halloween 5 had made it clear that the rights were not available. There's already another writer under contract to do a novelization of Halloween 5. And as the rights holder, they have the right to choose who they want to do that. But the author was under the mistaken impression that if he was under some sort of copyright violation, that Amazon would flag that, and that was somehow their responsibility and not his. And so there has been, and the publisher came back and made a comment on Twitter, I think, that basically was like, I don't remember what he said, but let's say he was vocal about his surprise that this author would go ahead and publish the book after he had told him that the rights weren't available. So what happened was the internet was instantly divided into two camps. One who thinks that he should be able to get paid for his work, and the other camp that says, sorry, that's not okay, and it's not you don't have the rights to it. And so I just wanted to have like a clarifying conversation today. I do not want to take sides. I think that I know what the law is, and he's in the wrong. However, after I said I don't want to take sides, I'm like, he's wrong. But also I know that we have a lot of fan fiction writers in this community. And so I just wanted to be super clear on the rules. The first thing is it's totally legal to write fan fiction. It is totally legal to share that fan fiction with other fans. And in fact, there's a great community of fan fiction writers. And there's so many great books that have come out of that sort of a process. A lot of authors learn to write by writing fan fiction. So all of that is okay. It's even okay if you put it up for free. You can give it away, but you cannot sell it. It's okay if you put it up for free and say, hey, I spent a year of my life working on this. If you like it, please support me on Patreon, or please give me a coffee donation, or support my YouTube channel, or whatever else. That is totally fine.
And if it gets any traction, then the rights holder might look at it and say, hey, this guy has some ideas and maybe we'll work on a future project.
Right.
Or he could take the basic plot, change the character and make it different, and publish his own version of a serial killer, because then that would be perfectly legal and he'd get paid for his work.
Right. That's the other thing, right? So he could do this. He specifically had done all this research on Halloween 5. However, if he wanted to sell if he's like, okay, I spent a year on this book is awesome, that's exactly what he could do. He could change the characters' names, change the setting, make it so that it's not the same thing, and sell it that way. And that is something that a lot of people do. What was surprising to me was that there was such a dramatic backlash, in particular from aspiring writers who felt like he should have because he went into this project with good intentions, that he should have the right to sell it, and that this was basically, sort of big corporate overlords, pushing down the little guy. But one of the things actually that the Horror Geek had said that I thought was such a good point was that if we allow it to go this way, where a company allows their rights to be usurped or used without their permission, then what happens is that we'll switch, and small creators will have their work taken by a company like Disney or Marvel, and they'll make $1 billion off Robert's idea or your idea or my idea. And
they do that anyway. And yes, it's not fair, but
they do that some anyway, but they can do it more freely and openly. Yeah, there you go. Okay, here it is. So the Horror Geek is clearly ready. The key takeaway here is half the world thinks they can just take your characters and creations, profit off them because they're sticking it to the banner. Art should be free for all. Right. And yes, exactly.
Yeah. Art can be free for all. You can give it to them for free and just not make a profit. That's not free. That's for profit.
Right. Right. That's exactly. Well, and then he was like, well, I only made $29. But the truth is like, it doesn't matter if you made $1 or $1 million. And I don't want to say, I do not want anybody to get the idea that I'm against fan fiction. I think it's awesome. And I love that people do that. And it's an excellent way to A, learn how to be a writer, and B, express your creativity, sort of with like guardrails on, like, if you go bowling and there's like, you can put up the bumpers like for the kids so they don't get gutter ball. And for me, I'm also not a good bowler. But they put up the bumpers so that, you stay out of the gutters. And I can see that it can be a really good way to learn how to write, but that's the law. So if you are writing fan fiction and you want to sell it, then do like Stephenie Meyer, the Twilight author, did. No, I'm going the wrong way. E.L. James, 50 Shades of Grey was originally Twilight fan fiction, and she changed all the names, she changed the situations, and ended up having, a massive blockbuster. In fact, I don't know. I'd have to go look at the numbers, but I wonder if 50 Shades didn't end up being bigger than Twilight. I don't know. Those were two huge book series. So Yeah, so this is possible. And if you really want to write about Halloween 5, then just know if you don't own the rights and the company that does own the rights has turned you down, then your choice is to do it as fan fiction. So,
Yeah, and the idea of big companies, I mean, they do find legal ways to rip people off, and I understand that. But if you can take their characters, then what if you wrote a story and it became like the next popular thing and you're selling
right.
movie rights and then all of a sudden people are writing their own version of your story because they have a better idea and they're selling it for profit? How are you going to
Right.
feel? So once
Right.
you start that game, then it's free for everybody, and nobody
Right.
has any rights to anything.
Right, and if you're an artist, you can't make a living. It's not like we have, like, some spectacular universal basic income where we're like, "Oh, it doesn't matter who gets the money for it," right? We if we wanna eat, we have to, sell our work, so or have a side gig, but authors, I think, should be able to, to make money from their work. Alright, let's take some comments. Devin says, "I finally reached the climax chapter of my book. Yay!" Congratulations, Devin. That is awesome. A good flash fiction reboot practice is to rewrite scenes from movies and media to a different ending. Excellent. That's excellent practice. Like I said, writing fan fiction is a really great way to learn the craft.
Hmm.
Yeah. It's called, yes, absolutely. All right. So Mama Ward says, I have a 130K fan fiction book on a friend's trilogy based on a side character, but I'll never sell it because it's her world and her characters. And I got permission and gave credit for every chapter. Excellent. Very nice. See? Yes, exactly. Exactly. Don't mess with the overlord. True. Right? There's something there. Mama says, I love that. Mama says, big problem on Wattpad, Inkit, and fan fiction where some people take a story practically verbatim, change one thing, and then claim it as their original work. But I understand this. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I totally appreciate the fact that he did a ton of work. They're just not his characters. And so I think, I mean, for me, he clearly wants to be an author. And so if it were me, I think I would rewrite it in that world. Or now that it's been so heavily publicized, just put it up as fan fiction and build your mailing list or your Patreon.
Yeah, he's got
Yeah.
some publicity going on there, so he could use
Right,
it.
and he pulled it, and so which I completely understand because there was this massive pile-on of you're breaking the law and you're about to get in big trouble. Um, so I feel for the guy, and that was the thing is I feel for the guy, but also he doesn't have the rights to it, and I'm sorry, that he spent all that time, and if he feels like the only way that he's gonna benefit from that is if he gets paid for it.
I'm very glad that there's a lot of writers and that there's a lot of forums that they can put their writing on and that you can self-publish. But the danger in all of this is we are reinventing so many wheels that have been around for decades. And a little research could solve a lot of problems and save people a lot of trouble. And we'd probably end up with better stories in the long run. But just running with something, and you know, it often doesn't work because people have been running with that for years. And if you have a good idea, then take the time to develop it.
Right.
Don't smash it out there and say, "Hey, bestseller."
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing, I do like, I know how because at that point, he added in extra scenes and deleted some things and tried to stay, true to the what's the word I'm looking for? Canon, all up until kind of the point where the 5th movie sort of went off the rails, and I totally get that that was a ton of work. I really do, and also and the other thing is that like I totally get that it was a ton of work, but it was not they weren't your characters. So your choices are release it for free or change them and get paid, but not both unless you have the rights. And so I feel bad for him because what he did in response to feeling like he was going to get sued, which is a reasonable fear given the circumstances, he pulled it down off Amazon. And I think if he had just put it up for free and said this is fan fiction, that's protected. And that he probably could start building himself a nice audience with that. There were a lot of people who came to his defense who wanted to read it.
Specifically, are we talking about that last movie where Michael was like possibly this homeless man lost in the sewers for years, or what movie is he trying to rewrite?
Horror Geek, can you please give us a synopsis of Halloween 5? You can come in if you want. I know he's in there like on the, I'm not sure if he's still doing his thing
If
or
it was
not.
that
So
one, yeah, that I kind of thought that was kind of crappy myself, but
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Right. And Mama, totally. That's the thing is that
yes.
yeah, it'll be worse for us. That it's the same thing with AI, that I think Disney will be having people or having oh, here we go. So Horror Geek says no, this was part 5 right before they turned him into a druid cult monster.
Okay.
Thank you, Horror Geek. Yeah. Not selling the money. I don't know. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So, speaking of writing for money, let's do a little bit of that, shall we? Here we go. Let's go ahead and start with our first 20-minute warm-up sprint. All right. I did think it was so interesting that a number of the people who were defending his right to publish this book were folks who had dreams of being raiders, but had not done that yet. All right, so here we go, everybody. It looks like I passed our thing. We're going to get rolling on our first 20-minute writing sprint in 3, 1, sprint. It just got really quiet. I don't know if you guys just saw me jump 19 feet in the air, but I did because, yeah, I was like so into what I was doing. I was not paying attention to the time, which I guess is what we have the buzzer for. So we have some interesting questions that came through today. Let me get rid of this little banner. Maybe we can get rid of it. Maybe we keep it forever. All right. So, how did you do on that last sprint?
I did much better this time around.
That's good. I'm very glad to hear it. I actually did pretty well too. I'm pretty happy with what I love the end of the book because then you're to the point where you just can't wait to get back to it and you sort of lose yourself in it and all the energy of being so close to finishing. I love like the last 20% of a book because you just feel like you're just sailing right through.
I've only got a few more chapters, so
Yeah. All
nearing
right.
the end.
I know we'll be having a little party next time. All right. So let me look at our question. I thought this was so interesting. If you could go back to the start of your career, your author career, and change anything, what would it be? Friends and friends and family in the chat. What do you guys think about that? Robert, how about you? What's your answer for that?
There's a lot I would change about my career, but I think the number one thing is I would kind of stick to my guns and not listen to other people.
Ooh, that's a really interesting takeaway. Good job. Love that. For me, I think I spent so much time promoting my first book. Like it kept selling. And so I kept doing publicity for it. And I ended up like getting sidetracked on, okay, oh, I'm on television. Oh, I'm writing a column. Oh, I'm doing this. Oh, I'm doing that. Which if I only intended to just write dating books forever, then I don't think that would have been terrible. But 5 years in, I started writing fiction and which I loved, and I feel like going back and forth has not been good. I would have spent less time doing, which is crazy. Nobody says like, "Oh, I'd spend less time doing PR," but I did so much for Stop Getting Dumped, like so much.
Yeah.
And yeah, and so I would probably do that.
And I was doing well by the general consensus, but it only takes one person to kind of shatter the ground beneath your feet. For me,
Mhm.
that was an assistant editor. Um, and I would not give my ideas so freely to other people and so
Yeah.
generously because I gave away a lot.
I know it's terrible because, like, on one hand, you want to be generous with your fellow creators, right? On the
Mm.
other hand, you don't want to be ripped off. Like you should benefit from your ideas. I know, and I think too, for a lot of creative people, it doesn't occur to us early on in our careers or our lives that not everybody can come up with a million spectacular ideas a minute. So I think it takes a while sometimes before you learn the value of your ideas. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And for me, I guess I was gifted with a mind that could come up with a lot of ideas. And what I realized getting out there is not everybody can do that. And some people don't
Right.
like it when you can do
That's
that.
that's true. Well, I remember when my kids were little and I would like be the room mom, and a compliment that I got on a regular basis that I bet you also get, and I'll bet pretty much everybody in the chat gets, are like, "Oh my gosh, you're so creative. I wish I could be creative." And my brain was always like, it just happened. Like it's always like that. It's just and you don't realize like how hard it is for other people who don't have that particular skill.
The
I
good
thought
thing is I had people, even, partway through my comic book career, uh, coming to me, which I guess is a good thing, and saying, I'm stuck with this. How do I work out my villain? And they were coming to me like for ideas and little consultations. And that's when I kind of gave away a lot of ideas as well and sort of teaming up with these people. And at the same time, they kind of wanted to put their stamp on it. And there's a lot of things they didn't get credit for, and a lot of things that they almost got angry with me after the fact that I fixed their stuff because, as one guy told me, admittedly, he was a little envious, and he only came up with maybe one idea every 6 years that was really good, and we had some problems.
Oh,
Even though I was giving ideas freely to him, it became a problem.
and not the other way. Well, and that's
Yeah.
the thing is like you can have really collaborative relationships in writing. The horror geek gives me good ideas all the time. I'm positive I know I give him good ideas because I'll remind him. if something if something goes well and he's like, "Oh, this is going great," I'll be like, "Who thought about that?" um, just to just to help him along. Just to help him along as far as like remembering to compliment his better half. I think that's a good lesson. I always remember to compliment on the horror geek. I feel like, it's good. He likes to be reminded, I think. I'm pretty sure. Isn't that true, honey? Yeah. Mary says one of my favorite I'm sorry, I keep putting this comment up and I have not addressed it. Right? I think there's something to that. This idea. If you didn't have a stroke, you would never have become a writer, but you also would have learned formatting better before you published your first book. I think that is an excellent thing to do. I definitely would have focused a lot more on. I would have written more earlier on. And then the other thing is, I would have, if I had known then what I knew now, when I first started publishing romantic comedies, the head of Barnes and Noble, like the Barnes and Noble buyer for fiction, had declared that chick lit was dead. And what I wish I had done is just lean in and like write a million of them so that when it came back around, I'd have a massive backlist instead of, kind of doing all the stuff that I did. So Mary has good comment. One of my favorite compliments ever was someone I know who knows loads of people, many in creative fields, called me the most creative person I know. OMG, so thrilled by you. Love that. You are very creative, Mary. Very, very. Bonnie, hello. We are super glad to see you here today. All right, it's almost 12, so 12 Eastern. So we are going to go ahead and do another sprint. I'm anxious to get this book done, you guys. I hope your writing is going well. All right, here we go. Dun, dun, dun. Okay. Are we ready?
I'm
Second
ready.
sprint. This is going to be a good one. I can feel it. Get your little fingers stretched. We've got this. All right, guys, here we go. 3, 1. All right. All right. Once again, I was like totally lost in what I was doing, which is always a fantastic thing.
Yeah, I
So
feel like this is some of the best writing I did in a week. So very
I
cool.
loved I love to hear that. Oh, I just realized I put up the banner, so a bunch of people are like, "What are they doing over there?" Um, love, love, love that. So, how did you guys do in the chat? Let us know how your writing went today. And let's take a couple of comments. Mary said, "My employer recently did a chair yoga thing for us, and the lesson included finger stretches. You thought of me." Oh, because of the thing. I really worry about, like, knock on wood, I really worry about carpal tunnel. And so I'm always like kind of pulling my fingers and giving my hands a little massage. When I go get a manicure, I always like ask for extra hand massage because that's where I hold on my stress. But yeah, finger stretches, baby. So I could type an extra 2 words a minute. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. I don't know if it matters for that, but it does. I feel like they're less stiff if you warm up. Okay. Devin says there are things I've regretted, but I would not have learned and grown for them if they hadn't happened. I'm a better person from them, even though I still don't understand why. I totally agree.
Yeah,
Nothing is lost.
it's true. I mean,
It's
if you
just
could go back
tuition.
and change things, you would kind of have to know what you already know now in order to make them work. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the same experience and you wouldn't grow and learn to become who you are.
Right. Right. That's true. And this is good point from Devin. Yes, have faith and move forward. That's it. And and that's the thing about this is we can't go back. I think that you just brought up a really good point. I think a lot of times people go, "Oh, if I should have done this," but they feel like because they made that choice, 10 years ago that now I've all is lost. I should have done this. And that's not the case. You can always recover, do something different, do something better. So, yeah, it's just it's an interesting question though to think about what what could you do now that you would have done? And is it ever too late? I mean, for me, I just thought like, okay, I need to get more focused on writing books and that's what I'm doing. So, sometimes
Yeah,
that's just a good lesson.
there's adjustments to be made. And certainly I could say, well, I wish I'd pursued my own ideas maybe instead of working for the bigger companies. But those bigger companies were my dream since childhood. And
Right.
I fulfilled those dreams. And by, working for them, even though not all of it was, pleasant or productive for me, I learned so much from that that, I wouldn't have learned otherwise. And that I think is what self-publishing is missing because we don't have those same people or those same businesses to interact with. And I would say, get some experience and it'll actually help you.
I think that, I started in advertising and I think I learned more in my first year as an advertising copywriter than I did in any college class I ever took, or anything I think I've done since, at least not in such a I certainly learned plenty since then, but not in such a concentrated way. There is really some
Mhm.
advantage to being around writers and authors who have a lot more experience than you do, which is one of the things that makes YouTube kind of awesome because you can literally at any time of day show up on a live stream with one or several published authors and get your questions answered or find out how they work or so yeah, definitely.
Exactly. And make friends with people doing different jobs. I mean, on my little team, we asked a lot of questions of a lot of people, and we would work on projects for months and then find out that a bean counter gave us like a low production, because that's the way publishing works. And it's like, wow, we're not even going to stand a chance to get out there.
Right. That's a terrible feeling when you're I I'd had when I did the 15 minutes of shame tour, I'd set up a number of events in airport bookstores and and I just reached out to several managers and set up, signings, which was great. Except airport bookstores are primarily pay to play. So even though I was able to, sort of get around that, I I know that a lot of people have a hard time with that. And my publisher was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Well, I'm selling books. And they sort of felt like, oh, this is something for like John Grisham. This isn't for Lisa Daly. And I was a bestseller at that point, but they were like that was just going to be so I don't know. I think it's because they would not have wanted to pay like $10,000 for a signing. But of course, I would not have done that either. Never. Have never paid for a signing. Anyway, I thought that was really but I thought the whole thing was fascinating. Okay. Question number 2. This one actually comes from me because I did this really interesting interview on the podcast this week with Jill Shalvis, who wrote the Sweetheart List. And this woman she's really nice. And I actually really love the book. And I can't believe that I've never read anything of hers before because she has written 100 books and has 20 million copies in print. Like, let's just. And she said something that I have heard of before, but never had met anyone who actually did this. Ready for it? She said she does not read books in her genre, or very rarely read books in her genre, which I find really interesting. I will say she's an excellent writer. So I assume she probably read more when she started, but I thought that was really fascinating. So my question is, do you read so this was not a reader question. This is a Lisa question. Do you read or avoid other books in your genre or subgenre? Go.
No, I don't.
You don't read in your genre, or you don't read in your.
I read everything. I would not avoid any book is the point. I think people, if you don't read in your genre and you have an idea, but you're really versed in other genres and writing in general, you might come at it from a fresh perspective, or you might come up with something that's very tropey and has been done 100 times. So there may be a benefit. There may be, some mistakes to be made, but the opposite is true too. I run into a lot of new writers that don't read anything but their genre. And they take the advice that you have to be so versed in your genre that they're afraid to read anything else. And I've seen people say, well, I'm writing this. Oh, I can't critique that because I only read YA fantasy and I wouldn't know what to do. Then, that's scary. You feel that you can't write anything but, which means you're versed in that, but you're not really versed in writing per se.
Well, and there's so many opportunities for mashups, and I know Joe Clifford just has a really interesting sort of true crime metafiction mashup that just came out yesterday called Say My Name. And there are so many opportunities. One of my favorite movies, just for the delight of it, is a movie called I think it's called Warm Bodies. Was it called Warm Bodies? It's about this. It's a zombie love story, and I thought it was such a clever thing to do to make this zombie story, but also a love story. I thought that was really delightful. But if you avoided one genre or the other, then then a story like that wouldn't necessarily come to be. So yeah, I do think too you can get to a lot of times new authors in particular are like they want a completely original idea, so they want to like, oh, I can't read anything in my genre. And I think that especially if you're new to your career, that's a mistake as well. So that's just my opinion. There are plenty of people who never read anything in their genre. Obviously, Jill is doing very well with that, or do read a ton in their genre, which I tend to do, but mostly because I write romantic comedy because I love romantic comedy. It's my favorite genre. I do read other genres, but that's the one I always go back to. So,
yeah. I've read a lot of Sherlock Holmes stuff writing this book, but I also look at other books that have just good prose. And if the prose are flowing in a way that I think will, fit the character, fit the vibe, I stick in that vein and read books that will inspire me.
Right. Absolutely. How are you supposed to know comp titles without reading the genre? Yes. True. Dawdling Writer. Hi, we're so glad you're here today. I tend to binge read a genre and then get inspired for that particular genre. But then when I start drafting, I tend not to read in the genre while writing. I can see that. I can totally see that. Lainey says, I read in my genre all the time. Me too.
Yeah,
Oh, Amy had. Oh, go
I
ahead.
have read about people that say if they read a specific author like that in their genre while they're drafting, they'll sort of ape that style and they try to avoid it. So if you're getting caught up in it, it might be good to avoid it while you're drafting.
That's true. And especially if you have something that's something similar. I was pitched a book for the podcast a couple of days ago that is a lot like the plot of it sounds a lot like the plot to my first novel, 15 Minutes of Shame. And so I and so I was obviously that novel's been, was written and has already been published twice now. And so, but I'm really excited and interested to see this other author's take on a similar sort of
Mhm.
topic, which is a dating expert who gets dumped right as they're about to go on a book tour. I think it's kind of fun. So, all right, fantastic. So, Amy, such a good perspective. I consider these kinds of mistakes and step backs to be learning my craft because skill comes from experience. Yes, it
Mhm.
does. And thinking of it that way makes me feel better. So good enough for me. You know what? That's so true. You don't know what you don't know. And as much as I like, it's kind of fun to go, oh, well, I could go back. If I could go back, I would have done this or I would have done this. You don't want to get stuck in that, but certainly you want to take everything that you learned as you go forward and make the best decisions that you definitely can.
Yeah. I think
All
we
right.
all don't know what we don't know, but when you're just starting out, there's so much that you don't know because the masters of craft say that a lifetime is not enough to learn it all, and if you're doing it for a couple of years, there's a lot more. You're just seeing the tip of the iceberg.
I feel like that's true. I feel like I definitely felt in the very beginning of my career, I was flailing, no idea what I was doing at all. But the truth is, the more I mean, now I've been in publishing for a long time, decades long time. And I've worked in house with publishers. I've been a traditionally published author. I've been an indie published author. The longer I'm in this, the more I feel like there's some things change. And also there's always so much more that you could know, especially about writing. Always, always. There's a skunk walking through my yard, and Agent Mayhem wants to be its friend.
You know,
Oh no!
the
Odie has
apartment I
recently.
used to live in, kind of a
Go ahead.
funny story. There used to be cats, and one had a bunch of kittens that would be around the dumpster, and they would try to get in the dumpster, I guess, and eat food. And one night after dark, I took out some garbage, and I see the cats scatter, and I see these little feet because there was a fence next to the
Mhm.
dumpster walking, and I'm like, "Here, kitty, kitty," and all of a sudden the skunk comes around and it walks right up to me. I'm like, "Oh
Ooh,
my gosh." I just backed away slowly and then it
I know you're like,
didn't do anything, but
I do not want to freak out this skunk. We have so many wild animals around where we live. Like we're in like a bear area. We've got alligators. We've got turkeys and ducks and squirrels and rabbits and all this other stuff. Like just around the neighborhood, and it can be kind of scary. There was something that was digging these big holes in our yard, which we did like in the front flower bed really close to the house. And then there were all these they're like wild boars on the golf course. It can be kind of crazy.
yeah.
The skunk though, like I'm always afraid of that just because it takes so long to get rid of that smell. That's the last thing you want is to be sprayed by a skunk.
I guess you might have to frighten them before they do anything because this one just didn't seem that afraid. I mean, it walked within a few feet of me and just stopped, and it's looking at me like, "Oh my gosh."
Like, are you gonna try something or can I just keep going? Yeah, I think that being around so many people, or living in a neighborhood makes animals a little more comfortable because we have this little rabbit, um, that I'm calling, Belvedere, just for fun. We have this little rabbit, and Odin has decided that the rabbit is his friend, and so often he's out there, and the rabbit will be, like, eating grass, and Odin will be eating grass, and they're just, like, hanging out together, like parallel play.
Mhm.
And, but we were out there the other day, and I had Odin, he was on the leash, and he's messing around in the yard, and the rabbit came out to hang out with the dog. was like, "What?" So, anyway, he's very sweet. I think a lot of times he thinks that the dog or that the rabbit is, Munchkin, our little dog next door.
It's interesting how nature can become friends like that.
Yeah, right? They just, like, kinda like, "Oh, you're not gonna bug me? Great. I'm not gonna bug you? Great." And they just and Odin's in this grass eating fit, like, he's always got kinda stomach things going on, so he eats a lot of grass. And so he and the rabbit just hanging out grazing together. All right, guys, let's go ahead and do our last 20-minute writing sprint. We are gonna get some writing done. If it kills us, but it's not going to. It's going to be easy. Here we go. Whee! Fun. I can't count. So I did it again. I just like went right through that, like, whew, amazing. So this was good. This has been a really good sprint for me.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just had like a call on my computer, which I really don't. I never ever need that, and I have not figured out how to turn it off. I'm sure there's a way, but I love that Mama Ward gave us like a recipe for getting rid of skunk smell in case anybody needs it, because this is the greatest group ever. That's all I'm saying. All right, you guys, let's go ahead and say our goodbyes because it is almost 1 o'clock Eastern. Robert, tell us a little about you before we go, shall you?
Okay, well, stay tuned for that Story Detective 2.0 coming in the not too distant. Probably as soon as I finish this draft and need to take a break and work on something else in between, I will start actually filming some of the videos I have scripted. And yeah, they should be interesting.
I'm sure that they are going to be interesting. I generally like to work less in the summer, and I was thinking, like, what in the world was I thinking launching a podcast? But it's been so much fun. I actually like really, I really love it. So anyway, even though it's brand new, I just if I had thought this through, I would have started at like Labor Day instead of Memorial Day weekend. Anyway, thanks so much for being here, you guys. As I mentioned at the top of the hour, we are actually not going to be doing the live stream next week. I will be on vacation, and so we will return the week after. But you guys all keep writing. I'm so glad that we had a chance to all hang out today. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Lisa Daly. This is my lovely and talented friend Robert Jones, and Michelle will be back with us when we return in 2 weeks. Have a great
good.
day, you guys. Sorry, Robert. Go ahead.
It sounds good.
You know me, I'm like, blah, 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 but I always want to make sure, like, when you're speaking, that we actually like listen. So, anyway, all right, you're awesome. Thanks, you guys, so much, and we will see you next time. Bye bye. Keep
Take
writing.
care, everybody.
Bye.